Hello, welcome to Holiday Harmonies, Caregiving During the Festive Season. My name is Kate, and I am the Program Associate for Education at Age of Central Texas. I'm going to be taking you through some of the essential strategies to support your older loved ones and foster joyful gatherings during the holiday season. Age of Central Texas is a nonprofit that serves 5 counties with 5 comprehensive programs designed to support older adults and their family caregivers. So we offer 2 licensed adult day health centers, both in Round Rock and South Austin, early memory support, resource navigation, which is a one-on-one service with our resource associate, support groups, multiple support groups throughout the week, caregiver and aging education. So, like what this is, technology education, and of course, our HELP program, which is our free durable medical equipment and incontinence items. This program is based out of 2 spots as well as a couple others in different regions. So, we have our main help desk though in South Austin and Central Austin. So if you would like any more information on any of these programs, please feel free to reach out to us here at Age. You can through our website or through the email that's going to be at the end of this presentation, and we can help you with any of these programs. But in the meantime, let's get into our holiday harmonies. So, the holidays are a special time. These times bring people together, especially those family members that you may not see very often. They're typically a time of joy. They're a time to spend together, do activities that you don't normally the rest of the year. So it's a lot of fun during this time of the year, but it can also be stressful. This is a high stress time. I know usually you're trying to work, you're trying to prepare for the holiday. So especially if you are also a caregiver, this can be a lot. So this could be very stressful as a caregiver, or this could be a time that you're going to bring up some questions or some concerns with maybe a family member that you don't see very often. So in this presentation, we're going to go over some of the warning signs that may pop up this holiday season, and then what to do if that happens. And then if you're actively caring for your care recipient, we're going to look at some planning guidelines and tools just to make this holiday season a bit easier for both you and your care recipient. So 10 warning signs of dementia. So these are warning signs of cognitive change. So this could be difficulty with everyday tasks. They may be struggling to measure out ingredients or forget they were even cooking something. Repetition, they could repeat the same story over and over again, or even the same comment multiple times. Communication issues. They might struggle to figure out the words that they're trying to think of when talking to others, or maybe how to use technology such as a phone or computer, especially if they've known how to use this technology in the past and they're now forgetting how to use it. That might be that warning sign. Getting lost. They may not remember where they are or where they're going, especially if they're still driving. So they may forget how to get somewhere that they've gone dozens of times before. A turn that they make every day, they may completely forget about and forget where they are. Struggles with instrumental activities of daily living. So this could be like medication. So these IADLs are tasks that people need to be able to do to live independently. So you may notice a family member forgetting to take their medications or forgetting which medications they're supposed to be taking at what time. So they may mix them up because they forget which one does which or when they're supposed to take it. They may mention how much they've been struggling to remember to pay their bills, or maybe they remember to pay their bills, but they forget which ones they've already paid or and which ones they still need to pay. These are those activities of daily living that are important to do to maintain that independent living, so maintain a household, taking care of themselves, you might start to see a decline in these abilities. They may have a bit of confusion about where they are or even what year they're in. They could start misplacing things. Now, misplacing things could be a typical occurrence for everybody, especially during the stressful holidays. I myself forget where I leave my phone constantly and have to go on a search for it around the house. But maybe you notice that they're misplacing things a lot more often, or maybe it's somebody who doesn't typically misplace things and you're noticing that this is starting to happen. Many people with dementia experience sleep disturbances, like trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. So that's a big one. A lot of people struggle with falling asleep, but specifically people experiencing cognitive change. Once they wake up, they really struggle to go back to sleep. They may wake up in the middle of the night and then they can't go back to sleep again until the next night. Loss of interest or an apathetic mood. So this can be shown also in depression, which is common in older adults. So it's important to kind of pay attention to maybe the reasoning why, but loss of interest or apathy can also be a sign for cognitive change. And then forgetting old memories, especially those that have been brought up and remembered in the past over and over again, and now they're forgetting them. So, seeing one or even two or three of these symptoms doesn't necessarily mean that your family member or loved one is experiencing dementia or cognitive change. Everyone experiences these things every now and then, especially due to stress. Stress can and will create some of these symptoms, especially during the holidays, since this is a stressful time. The important piece is paying attention to these warning signs and then kind of going with your intuition of whether this is just because of stress. Maybe it's actively dinner that they're stressing about or this event that they're stressing about, and you're noticing some of these times versus you're noticing it throughout the entire time you're spending time together. And this could be something bigger than stress. So it's something to pay attention to and start to note in your brain and even start taking down notes just in case while you're seeing these warning signs, but not something to immediately jump to cognitive change. So we went over those big 10 warning signs of cognitive change that you might start noticing. Just to give you a little bit of background, what does dementia really look like? So you're noticing these warning signs and you're concerned that it might be cognitive change. You're noticing it more than just stressful events, and you're wondering, what does dementia typically look like? So dementia can look like many things, especially depending on what disease experiencing cognitive change it is and how it's being developed in the person themselves. It can look differently for everyone, but typically we can break it up into stages. So, three of the most basic stages are the early, middle, and late stage. So, in the early stage, people are struggling to follow conversation. They're maybe having a little bit of difficulty with change. They don't like it when the plan switches. Or they're having difficulty with executive functioning, so that decision-making ability, their ability to take in information and adapt. So again, that difficulty with change as well. Time management becomes more of a struggle with that executive functioning. So these are some early symptoms that you may see, especially in that early stage. They can typically still remain mostly independent, though they may need some assistance with tasks like medication management and remembering in-depth plans or multiple appointments. So it might become more difficult to remember multiple things happening at one time, so they may need assistance breaking them down. Try to adjust your expectations of this person to take into account the accommodations they may need, maintaining a routine, and minimizing distractions. So, again, that executive functioning, they're going to struggle to take in multiple things at one time. So, if there is a lot going on, that's going to be too much input for their brain. So, trying to minimize those distractions and that overstimulation in the environment is going to become increasingly important. Moving on into that middle stage, your older adult may be experiencing losing track of what they're doing in the middle of the task. So they may start something and then forget what step they're on or what the rest of the task is meant to do. So especially if they're given a long list of things to do, they're going to struggle to remember all of those things on that list. There also might start to see a decline in performance quality. So this means how well they're able to do something. So in the past, when they folded laundry, it looked perfectly creased and like it does at a store, you might start to see that it's not quite as perfectly done anymore because maybe they don't remember how to do it or they get distracted, or even just bodily ability is starting to decline. So any of those things you might start to see. They're still usually able to follow a routine and maintain interest in those meaningful activities. So, this is a good time to try to engage them in things that they may enjoy, even if you might need to adapt the activity to their ability level. So, remember, you're starting to see a decline in their ability to do things in that performance quality. So, adapting things to what they're still able to do is going to become really important. And we're going to talk a lot about this and how it pertains specifically to the holiday later in the presentation. In this stage, it's going to be really important to continue to adapt and simplify tasks as well as structure that environment. So they're going to continue to be overwhelmed by overstimulation. And so structuring their environment so it's not quite as loud or not as many people and overwhelming with that cognitive input. And then also assisting in planning. So again, they're going to struggle to do those multi-step activities. And so assisting them in planning out their day, planning out what they're doing, maybe limiting the choices around them. So instead of them being in charge completely of getting themselves dressed, maybe you give them two outfit choices that they choose between just to limit that and make it a little bit easier for them during the day. Finally, that late stage. So, in the later stage, care recipients may start to lose track of not only the task, but the purpose of why they started it in the first place. So, in that middle stage, they were losing track of maybe what they were doing and how to finish. At this stage, they might lose track of even why they were doing it. They may start folding laundry and then they completely forget that they were even doing laundry to clear the bed off. They get completely distracted and have no idea why they were doing this. They may become more easily frustrated since their brain and their body can sometimes become more easily overwhelmed. They're going to start to struggle maybe with those basic activities of daily living like eating, dressing, or bathing. Adults in this late stage of dementia may struggle with daily tasks, but they can still feel supported trying to reach them through those five main senses. So, with the experience of cognitive change, the five senses are kind of the deepest rooted cognitive ability people have. It's what you start out even as a newborn, starting to be able to access. So, that's going to be their strongest cognitive input. So maybe you start playing their favorite holiday music, reading them their favorite books, looking at old photos together, or maybe having a traditional food they enjoy. This is going to set off the senses like hearing, so sound, or taste, like that food, or eyesight, so looking at those photos. Maybe even smell. You could have a candle. That's always been a favorite in the household around the holidays to maybe trigger some of that sensory input. So at this point, it's going to be increasingly important that you're taking control of that task planning, removing distractions. Again, they're definitely going to start to become overwhelmed with too much. So while feeling supported through the senses is important, I would suggest only doing one sense at a time and not trying to do multiple, because then they're going to feel overwhelmed. And then using short directions with demonstrations. So if you're able to show them how to do an activity, or maybe you have pictures that show them how to do that activity. And then with those short, simple directions, maybe you're only doing one direction at a time instead of trying to do multiple. So you're starting to see these concerns. You're really thinking that your loved one may be experiencing this cognitive change. What do you do? First, start documenting what you're seeing. Start giving those examples of those concerns, writing it down so you have something to reference. That way, you're seeing if there's maybe a pattern, if you're seeing multiple examples of the warning signs. Maybe there's a trigger to these things. This can help you really see what you're seeing and also be able to bring it up with a care team. So make an appointment to see that primary care physician or gerontologist. That way they can get you a referral for that neurologist, especially because those referrals can take a while. It is really hard to get in with a neurologist. So getting yourself on that schedule is going to be really important, even if, cognitive change isn't what they're experiencing, it can still help you to kind of give you some answers. And then start looking into resources. So Area Agency on Aging, calling 211, our Information and Resource Center. We can give you a lot of resources for different things based on what needs you might have, especially starting with education, different things that may pop up now that you may be starting this caregiving journey, or to help your loved one, that older adult, with navigating the healthcare system and all of those things. Okay, so we kind of went through the portion of the presentation of you're seeing your loved one and you're concerned, or you think that they may be experiencing cognitive change. Now we're going to transition more into already being a caregiver and having a member of your family who does have experiencing cognitive change, or maybe they are diagnosed with dementia, and some strategies to help you this holiday season as the caregiver, or maybe even the family members of this loved one if you're not the primary caregiver. So first, especially if you're the primary caregiver, start the conversation with yourself. So start to consider these questions, and we're going to get more into them as the presentation goes on, but just start to think about them. What things are most important to you this season? What should be communicated to family members about your care recipient? What would be the most helpful for you, and how do you picture these events going? What tasks could be shared or divided among others of the family? So start to make a plan. Create a list of tasks that others could help with so that you're not using that energy and feeling the stress of being put on the spot. Waiting to think of something until asked could just make you more overwhelmed and take you longer to figure out how to explain it to someone than it would take just to complete the task yourself. So this would actually increase your stress and those feelings of loneliness and frustration. So instead, start now. Start writing down the tasks that you do in a day for your care recipient and that holiday related agenda that you have this season and what needs to be done in preparation and during the event itself. So start categorizing things. So one category are things that only you can do. You know that this is not something anybody can help you, and you know that if asked, this is not something that you would ask for help with. But then you're going to have some other categories of things that other family members can help with. Things that maybe you guys can do together that they can offer that assistance. And then another list is going to be something that they can take off your list completely. Something that you can ask them in advance or during the event of, hey, can you do this for me? And it's something that after that, you no longer have to think about. So by having this already sorted in your brain, you're going to be able to easily answer when someone asks what they can help with and actually experience some of that joy of receiving that help. And then having a schedule that includes breaks and communicating this to your care recipient and family members. If you guys are a family that has one thing after the other typically during this holiday season, you're gonna want to maybe shorten that list or create it differently so that you have those breaks. Because if not, your care recipient is going to feel overwhelmed trying to do all of that. And then you might feel overwhelmed trying to facilitate all of these activities. Start to simplify things. It's okay if you can't do all of the things that you normally can do. Life has probably started to look a little bit differently for you as a primary caregiver. And so your holidays are also going to look a little bit different. So don't feel expected to cook that four-course meal. Consider getting a couple of things already made and focus on cooking more of those family recipes that only you can. Ask other family members to bring or cook things so it's not feeling like it's all on you. And then maybe decorating. Maybe this is something that feels overwhelming. So maybe you have an activity of decorating when others are in town or when other family members are at your household so you can share that responsibility and it's not something you need to spend a lot of time on, especially if you have a lot of other things on your plate. And then consider your own needs. I know this is so much easier said than done, but really take breaks when you need it and say no to things that may be too overwhelming. Really take stock of what you're feeling, what you think your needs are, and what you have going on, and consider what you can and cannot commit to. So, communicating with your care recipient. So, first, set the stage and share your enthusiasm. So, your care recipient, I know this is a lot of pressure on you, but they're really going to go off of your emotional state and kind of take in like what you're giving off and put that off as well. So try to be enthusiastic. If you're feeling stressed and you're feeling anxious, then they are also probably going to start feeling that stress and anxiety. So try to talk to them about what their favorite things are about the holidays, get them excited, let them know the plan of what's going to happen. And even if they don't remember the plan, just continue to fill them in on what's going on so they feel included and a part of the family activities. And then also consider their unique needs. They may have unique needs like a routine that works best for them, in which case, try to plan holiday events with that in mind. If they get overwhelmed easily, maybe having a quiet place they can go and limit that interactions and activities. They may have physical needs, so access to the table or house may need to be taken into consideration, especially if you're traveling. So, a lot of what I'm talking about implies that you are the host and you're having people come to you, but maybe that's not true for you. Maybe you and your care recipient are going somewhere else, in which case you have to consider those needs of getting there, their physical level of navigating that household, traveling, if you're driving, or especially if you're flying, taking into consideration what that might entail and what extra steps you may need to consider. So, trying to think about what are the best ways to accommodate these needs and having that conversation early with yourself, with your care recipient, and with others in your family who also may be able to help in this. So, structuring the holidays, minimize the guest list. I know this sounds really hard, and maybe you're used to having a really big group come for the holidays, but consider that that might be overwhelming, not only for your care recipient, but for you as well. When you have so much on your plate and you're really stressed throughout the holidays trying to get everything done, having a bunch of people over and at an event may be a little bit too much. So consider who is really important to you and to your loved ones of having at the holidays, having at holiday events and activities, and maybe start to minimize that guest list a little bit. Having a quiet space for your care recipient to go when they're feeling frustrated or overwhelmed. So, again, we talked a lot about how overstimulation and that cognitive input can really overwhelm them and it can kind of make them frustrated. So, have a quiet space that they can go to get away from all of that stimulation. And this even might come in handy for yourself. You also might feel overwhelmed and overstimulated. So, maybe you have a little space that's just for you and your care recipient in the house that you can go to kind of calm down, take some breaths, give yourself a little bit of space, and preferably it's somewhere that other people may not have access to. So give yourself that 5 minutes of time when nobody is allowed to ask you questions or talk to you for a minute to just breathe. Try to stick to a typical routine as much as possible. So, this can help reduce additional frustrations or those sleep disturbances from occurring because your care recipient is used to a routine. So, if I know this is going to be a little bit harder during the holidays and getting up at 7 a.m. to have coffee like you do every day may suck when you didn't go to bed until 1 a.m. or when this is the first time you don't have to go to work and so you have that off and you want to sleep in. But it might help to stick to that routine. They're going to feel more of that autonomy of knowing what's happening, of having a say in what's going on if you stick to that routine that you do every day. If you don't stick to that routine, in which it's not always possible to stick to the routine, but by not sticking to the routine, they're not going to feel as secure as they normally do, and they're going to feel like they don't know what's going on. Ask your care recipient to assist with tasks that match their ability levels. So this could be decorating cookies, setting the table, and assisting in wrapping gifts. So keep them included. They want to be included in family events and activities. So just try to find something that would match their ability level for them to do. And then when doing tasks, focus on the activity and not the outcome. So as much as sometimes that perfectionist can take over and we want everything to look great, it's more important just to focus on the activity and getting to do things together and not focusing quite on much as what comes out of it. So, some helpful activity strategies. So, be intentional. So, we're setting up and what support could be needed for this activity. What can help make this person successful? Maybe an environment without distractions, maybe having an example of a completed activity as a guide, maybe having friends and family join to help them, or inviting others to the activities with the person to provide those guidance and suggestions. Maybe you try something new. Maybe whatever you were doing in the past really isn't working anymore. So don't be afraid to try something new. Switch it up a little bit. See what works now. And then also keep trying. So it may not work the first time, but maybe you tried to do something right before lunch and everybody was a little hungry. And so maybe there was some frustration coming out. But maybe you try again after lunch. And now that everybody is fed and they're more relaxed, maybe it goes a little bit better. Keep it independent and doable. So make sure you have realistic expectations based on their current level of cognition and physical health. And again, focusing on that process, not the outcome. So the goal is connection, not necessarily getting everything right. So let them do as much as they can themselves so that they feel like they have a purpose and that independence while doing it. And then if it's not perfect, that's okay. It's just about doing things together. Communicate. Ask everybody to help you. Bring people into this activity. Go slowly so it gives people time to process and respond. So you may give them instructions and ask them a question. It may take them a while to kind of figure out what you said, what they're doing, and so they may not respond right away. Give them some time, take it slow. So I would definitely recommend doing activities that don't have extreme time constraints. So if you don't have time to do the activity, maybe save it for later because rushing it is just going to build that frustration. Take it one step at a time. So instead of having multiple steps that you're giving everyone, maybe you all do one step at a time and you move slowly and give everybody time to kind of catch up to each other and just enjoy doing it. And then also having multiple forms of instruction. So maybe you're telling them, but you're also showing them, or maybe you're writing down the instructions. And then just focus on that connection. Support each other, give encouragement. Frustration is natural and it may occur, but just work through the frustration, stay calm, stay empathetic, stay encouraging, and then just laugh together. Laughter is the best way to diminish that frustration because it doesn't feel like it's high stakes. And if you're able to laugh together, you can just find that joy in the moment. So, adapting activities. So, focus on what they can still do. So, starting with that conversation with your care recipient, what do they enjoy? What are they looking forward to in the holiday season? What do they enjoy about this activity? And what may be challenging for them now? How can we adapt it to accommodate these new needs? So, modifying the activity while keeping it as close to the regular version as possible, but still maybe changing it up a little bit. So, like holiday baking. So, some of those challenges may be safety or maybe difficulty in planning out the project. So, maybe they struggle to plan out all the steps themselves. So some of the strategies could be maybe instead of having them plan everything out, maybe you're laying out all the ingredients and then bringing them through it step by step with them. So they don't feel that pressure and don't feel that frustration of being overwhelmed with trying to remember everything that goes into baking these cookies. Maybe reducing distractions. So in my family, we all love to bake cookies and we bake multiple cookies all at the same time, but maybe that's a little overwhelming. Maybe instead of having the entire family at the kitchen at one time, only a couple of people are in there at a time. And then you also don't have as quite as many distractions, so keeping the TV off and just focusing on talking and baking together. And then maybe you invite them to be in charge of one task. So instead of asking them to do the entire baking experience, maybe they're in charge of icing the cookies or packaging them away at the end. So these are some examples of tasks with varied involvement. So maybe you're adapting activities, but also just having some thoughts in your head of what activities you could do that have different involvement levels. So, especially this is going to come in for those better and worse days. So, if they're having a great day, maybe they can handle some tasks with that medium involvement, like mixing or stirring things in the kitchen, playing word games like things that are read, or assisting in sorting. So, maybe they're sorting the presents under the tree or ingredients in the kitchen. But maybe they have a day where they didn't get as much sleep, they're more easily overwhelmed, and so then you find some tasks with that more low involvement. So maybe they're just flipping through some albums and reminiscing, putting on some music that they enjoy, or recalling stories of past holidays, or even reading a favorite book. And maybe they're not the one reading it, maybe somebody else is even reading aloud from a favorite book, and they're just able to listen and enjoy the time. So, communicating with others. So, relaying information to family and friends. So, you're going to want to share some information about what to expect and what things have changed with this loved one. So, family members who don't see them very often, maybe they're coming from far away, they're not going to know how Uncle Joe is operating now that he's experiencing more cognitive change. Maybe they haven't seen him in a couple years and he's going to act a little bit differently than how he acted in the past. So it's important to let them know that the structure of the holiday may look differently to accommodate Uncle Joe and these new needs that he has. And also that somebody experiencing cognitive change may not recognize them. So maybe Uncle Joe isn't going to recognize Cousin Sally, who he hasn't seen in 2 years, especially with that cognitive change happening. So, having guests introduce themselves, keeping it friendly, and asking them not to try and force memory recall, because that's just going to overwhelm and frustrate somebody experiencing cognitive change. So they're going to feel frustrated that they can't remember, and they might feel sad that they're experiencing this. And also having guests avoid pointing out repeated comments or correcting errors. Again, this is just going to frustrate them and it's just going to frustrate everybody. So instead of that, preparing them not to do this so that they're able to just enjoy the time together. And then asking family members for help. So start by being honest about your feelings and about your needs. Maybe you're feeling you're struggling a little bit and you need some extra help. So being honest with your family members. And then asking family members for that help in an actionable way. So that goes back to having that list already created of things that family members can help with. Ask for help with things that they can do in that moment and be specific about the help you need and how to do it. So if you're asking your sister to help your mom get dressed, share the typical routine with how you go about it and the best strategies that you've found. And if you're able to write this down ahead of time, even better, because then that can be super useful in the moment for you to hand her this list of things that she can read over herself. Sometimes the best help is actually just clearing out the house so that you can get a break or some uninterrupted time to finish a task. So if you are what we call a sandwich caregiver, so you're caregiving for your parents, but you're also still a parent yourself, maybe you haven't had time to wrap your kiddos' gifts for the holidays. Maybe there's something that you want to do that you haven't had time to do. Maybe you have to cook something. There's something going on that you still need time to do. And it would be best if you had some uninterrupted time to finish this task. So you could ask your sister to take your mom to the park or out for a drive so that you can get this break and this time to complete these activities. Maybe you could ask Aunt Sherry to flip through scrapbooks with your mom while you help your youngest wrap presents, especially if mom doesn't quite have that ability to help anymore. Or maybe this is just a time that you want with your youngest kiddo. And so you ask somebody to help do an activity with mom so that you have that more uninterrupted time. Make cleaning up after dinner a full family activity. That way, it's not just on you, and then you're giving everybody a task that's helpful to you, so you're getting things done quicker. You're not feeling as overwhelmed with having all of this to do after you spent maybe the whole day cooking. And then also, it's still a time to be together. You're still doing this activity together. And maybe you take the opportunity to have Uncle Tony install those handrails in the bathroom that you've been meaning to get put up. So maybe you don't have a list of things that could help you for the holidays, but maybe having these family members there, maybe they can do some stuff that you've been meaning to get to and kind of offer that help. Family members typically want to help, they just don't really know how. So giving them a task like, hey, you're really good and handy. I've been trying to get these handrails up for the last couple months. Do you have time to put them up? That could be a great opportunity to take something off of your list that's been on there for a while and that's just been continuing to build. So remember, the most important thing is to have time to just enjoy being together. Consider your own feelings. So it's okay to mourn the changes and recognize that you're gonna have feelings about this. Your holidays are gonna look different. Your family members are gonna be a little bit different. They're gonna interact a little bit different. And so you're gonna have feelings about this, and that is completely valid. Just remember to also try to enjoy those moments of joy. So you're gonna maybe have some feelings of grief about how things used to be, but recognizing that even though things are changing and adapting, it can still be just as enjoyable and you can still have those connections. So focus on making the best of the moment and try to stay flexible. If a plan isn't working, try something else. And then most importantly, just try to keep a sense of humor. Remember, there's not a right way to experience the holidays, just a best way for you and your family's needs. I know that we can get kind of overwhelmed with how everybody else is doing the holidays and this picture perfect Hallmark creation that we're trying to potentially do. But remember that realistically, only movie producers can make that happen. So just try to make it the best that it can be for your family and your family's needs. So, also keep the conversation going. We talked a lot about how to orient yourself and your family members and how the holidays are going to look, but you now have all of these people talking again. You're talking to your family members about what's going on with Uncle Joe or what's going on with your mom. And so now family members are kind of more in the know. They're maybe wanting to help a little bit more. So maybe it's time to make an action plan. So keep a running list of things that need to be done so that help can extend beyond the holidays. Setting up a group chat to keep in touch, or using tools such as Google Docs to stay organized or keep track of appointments in a way that others can access them. I will say having helps extend beyond the holidays is great. However, make sure you're careful about how much you agree to. Communication is super helpful, but it can also just be another task that you're adding to your to-do list. So make sure you're considering what you're actually able to do and maybe how you can delegate some of these new tasks so that you're not just continuing to overwhelm yourself. Thank you so much for attending Holiday Harmonies, caregiving during the holidays. If you have any questions or concerns or have any need for any resources, please feel free to reach out to our Education and Resource Services Director, Amelia. Her email is right here on the screen, so feel free to take a screenshot of that or write it down really quick, and we would be happy to meet with you and discuss any of these ideas, any questions you may have, or any resources you may need. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great holiday and that you really take this time to just enjoy being with your loved one. Again, thank you for joining us. This is a QR code to our website, which has all of our resources, contact information, and other events going on. So if there's anything in the future you'd like to attend, you can find all of the signups on the website, and I hope to see you at future age events.